Today my group members and I are going to talk something about ecotourism. Our presentation will introduce ecotourism from four aspects. First, I will introduce some background, including the origin, the evolution, and the definition of ecotourism. And then we will invite Dr. Zhao from the School of Tourism of UQ to analyze the importance. After that, Dr. Wen from Hawaii Tourism Minister will introduce the impact of ecotourism from environment, social and economy aspects. In the fourth part, Dr. Shen from UQ Tourism Organization proposed some strategies to address this issue. Finally, Zhu will draw the conclusion. As we can see from this figure, international tourism doubled during the last 20 years and bring about remarkable income for the tourism destination. However, the growth of mass tourism also generated many problems, especially the damage of natural environment. This arrests a requirement of minimized impact tourism. Fino described the origin of ecotourism as responding to the need for more natural travel in line with social effort to become more ecologically minded. The first use of ecotourism can be dated back in 1965, and the term was popularized in 1983. In 1990, the first global ecotourism organization was established. It is the International Ecotourism Society. Another milestone is the World Tourism Summit in 2002, and it is the International Year of Ecotourism. Up to now, the development of ecotourism theory experienced more than 50 years, but there is still not an agreed definition. The International Ecotourism Society defined it as responsible travel to natural area that conserves the environment and improve the well-being of local people, while the International Ecotourism Strategy state it as nature-based tourism that involves education and interpretation of natural environment, and is managed to be ecologically sustainable. Dr. Hani argued that ecotourism should be the practice of low-impact, educational, ecologically and culturally sensitive travel that benefit local communities and host country. According to these definitions, it can be concluded ecotourism should be the intersection of conservation, profit, and locals. In order to learn ecotourism deeply, we need to figure out how important this issue is. Now let's invite Dr. Zhao to give us an overview of the importance of ecotourism.
Dr. Zhao, how do you think ecotourism is important in tourism industry?
Well, first, ecotourism could limit the negative impacts of mass tourism to the environment. It is manifest that tourism is one of the fastest growing industry in contemporary society, which, however, has both beneficial and detrimental influence on the environment. The environment has been destroyed by mass tourism development in a number of ways, such as destruction of geography, the damage to vegetation, and the pollution which created by human activities. Therefore, it is important to take effective measures such as sustainable tourism, which can protect our environmental sustainability in an extent. In recent years, as one of the important aspects of sustainable tourism development, ecotourism has been a global issue, and there has been increasing attention afforded ecotourism development in a lot of countries. such as United States, Canada, and Australia. Generally speaking, there are three typical characters of ecotourism. Ecotourism depends on the local resource, imparts the importance of environmental protection, and it also protects the local communities. More specifically, as Mr. Hani conducted a more detailed category of the characteristics of ecotourism. She said, ecotourism involves the travel to national destinations, minimize the impact, and building environmental awareness. It also provides direct financial benefits for conservation, provides financial benefits and empowerment for local people. In addition, it also respects local culture and supports human rights and democratic movement. The important ecotourism also plays an increasingly important role in the contemporary society because our planet faces numerous environment problems now, such as the climate change, the spread of acid rain, the ozone hole, and so on. It is necessary to raise the awareness of environment protection. Generally speaking, ecotourism can effectively have reinforced the concept of ecological civilization by increasing people's awareness of the importance of ecological system protection. Therefore, it is quite crucial to give the priority to ecotourism, which is friendly to the environment. Thank you.
Since the importance of ecotourism reflects on its impacts, let's invite Dr. Ma to introduce the current and future impacts onto ecotourism.
Dr. Ma, as a researcher on ecotourism, what do you think of the impacts of the ecotourism on the Earth currently?
Ecotourism is a complex phenomenon that has grown rapidly in the last 3 decades. By calling for economy, social, and environmental sustainability in tourism, ecotourism became the golden egg of conservation and development agency. An explosion of growth in this sector of tourism happened in the 1990s and continues today. The property of ecotourism that emerge at a global level and the metrics used to examine them are different from those emerging at an individual level. For example, the metrics used to evaluate social impacts differ from those used to examine economic and environmental impacts. While ecotourism depends on a narrow segment of tourism market, while the very essence of ecotourism is to be more engaged with communities in order to distribute economic opportunity to residents and to have direct experience with local places and cultures. But there are some problems. An increase in ecotourism opinions often changes the community and the residents. In particular, residents that do not directly benefit from the presence of visitors may be worse off as a result of limited access to traditional resources and places. But rapid and planned changes generally cause conflicts, as social, economic, and environmental interests compete to determine the future of the community, and can put those outside the tourist economic at a disadvantage. Well, there's an example about Hawaii. Before ecotourism, in spite of interest in ecotourism in the 1990s, the tourism sector with support from state of Hawaii government agency continues to market itself primarily as a sea and sand destination to a mass tourist market. Well, after ecotourism advocates in the state of Hawaii have made a case for changing the marketing message with mixed results. Well, HTA contributed an excess of $6 million to the State Department of Land and Natural Resources for management of the natural and cultural resources that attract visitors. Of 55 proposals and 29 projects improved works and destination that gives tourists a close look at the ecology of Hawaii and its native plants and birds. Also that The combination of biological diversity and cultural heritage in Hawaii Island creates conditions conducive to the development of an ecotourism segmentation of the tourism sector.
Finally, let's see a video from the issue-ecotourism organization about management strategies.
According to some researchers, there are some practical solutions to accelerate the development of ecotourism. Firstly, the government should enhance the cooperation between tourism agencies and departments and establish a concentrated management authority. This management authority could provide principles for development, identify the most suitable industry for different areas, and implement the environmental management. Secondly, an open-style ecotourism management model called biosphere reserve is an emerging regional management philosophy. Biosphere reserve are multi-function areas that attempt to integrate conservation with economic development and human interaction with the environment. This is achieved through the integration of protection, research, monitoring, and sustainable economic development. In the biosphere reserves, ecotourism can be the revenue resources of the economic development. From other hand, economic development could assist in the improvement of tourism facility and staff training. Moreover, the research is supported by the local economy could offer academic guidance for the development of ecotourism. Thirdly, the significance of the involvement of the local community is realized by researchers and the government. Therefore, local community should be afforded more responsibility and education about ecotourism. And also, the benefits from tourism industry should be invested into the development of local community. With these benefits, local community will show their passion to involve into ecotourism and provide their support.
In conclusion, the widely conceived issue ecotourism stems from its significance towards destinations. The nature of ecotourism determines its indispensable in developing a sustainable tourism industry, particularly in environment and cultural perspective. Second, ecotourism mainly affects the well-being of the economy, environment, and community of the destination in both sides. To deal with the problem brought by ecotourism, the foremost is the coordination and among stakeholders, such as local government, local residents, community, and tourists. To build a sustainable biosphere reserve is another strategy. And the third one is to encourage the involvement of local residents. To better carry out strategies, implementation should be taken by interest stakeholders, of which government and destination tourism organizations play key roles. In the perspective of government, the formulating ecotourism policy serves as a main tool in regulating individual and organizational behavior. Encouraging policy is of great significance. This involves a tax exemption and reduction, particular for entrepreneurs who has accomplished the requirements of ecotourism criteria developed by government. Paralleling with this, penal policy in tourism developing country which cause a deterioration of environment is also indispensable. In terms of ecotourism organization, networking involving ecotourism is crucial. It is an effective and efficient way in building a strong relationship between interest stakeholders, which is the basis of cooperation and coordination in developing strategies mentioned. Besides, for whom marketing is the major function, ecotourism has to be put into proposals. It can both impact on the behavior of tourism developed departments and individuals, which in turn enforce the involvement of local residents. Thanks.